Make more good in the all-new Sportage X-Pro. Kia, movement that inspires.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
New Trail Brewing Company proudly crafts their beers right here in central Pennsylvania. Brewed with only the best possible ingredients, New Trail produces a variety of year-round brands as well as weekly experimental recipes. New Trail Broken Heels is Pennsylvania's favorite local hazy IPA. This beer is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is perfect for a pregame tailgate all the way through the victory celebration.
What's the best mid-size pickup? Tacoma. What's the number one mid-size truck in resale value? Tacoma. Want to get great gas mileage, 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive? Tacoma. Sioka Toyota of Williamsport has over 25 available right now. You can lease a brand new, never-driven Toyota Tacoma for just $379 a month. That's 30 months, $3,000 cash or trade, 10,000 miles a year. This is while supplies last. Buy yours or reserve yours today and see the Sioka difference. And remember, tell them Johnny sent you.
Boom. There we go. We're live here on the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show, but we're quite obviously not at Quaker Steak and Lube. I'm Chris Bucanani, your fake fill-in scab host. Ironhead's going to be jumping in a little bit. I got Keith Goon Conlon with me. And Goon, you had a really exciting evening last night. I don't know how many details you want to get into, but bottom line, had to make an unexpected late-night trip to the veterinarian, which I think all of us who are pet owners have had a similar experience at one point or another in our life.
Very true. You never want to do it, but
no.
I don't know.
You never want to do it, but nevertheless, sometimes that just comes up, and so we make a quick audible. Fortunately, the magic of technology allows us to do all this remotely, and so here we are. Telling everybody that the lube is still there, as it always is. The beer is still cold. The wings are still excellent. And the televisions are still showing all of the very best in regional and national sports. And in this case, Goon, I think those two worlds collide in the ending of a decade-long playoff drought because it's officially Red October. It's
like my buddies at home. My one buddy was just like, dude, PSU bye could not be at a better time.
How about
you know what I mean? You got a 3-game weekend, a 3-game series versus at the Cardinals. I already got my whole setup ready. You ready for it, Booch?
Yep, fire away.
Troy's Hoagies, Tasty Cakes, Yingling.
Philly's proudest. I love it.
And Philly soft pretzels.
Very nice. Very nice.
Correct.
What you do mustard on those pretzels there, Goon?
Absolutely.
And
I like the nacho cheese too now. But I like the spicy brown and the nacho. I like the little nugget Johns. You know what I mean? The little ones they give away. The big, not just the regular pretzels. The nuggets. They're fantastic. So, maybe get a tray of hoagies. It's an important
question as to whether or not you favor the spicy brown or the yellow mustard on the pretzels.
No yellow, all spicy brown.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It makes me ill that some places don't even offer a alternative to yellow mustard.
I agree. You got to give the people the choice, and I am definitely a spicy mustard partisan. So
sure.
I'll start out by bringing up what I've seen mentioned several times online, that there's a little bit of symmetry here. It feels like less time has passed to me personally. I guess the years have just flown by, but like I said, it has been a decade since your Philadelphia Phillies were in the Major League Baseball postseason. And that was really the end of an era. It was the last gasp of those great teams, the Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins Phillies were snuffed out by the Cardinals. And so there is, like I said, a little bit of symmetry to the fact that now they make their return to the postseason. And it's kind of the end of an era for the Cardinals as well, right? Like the Wainwright Pujols era. That's coming to an end in St.
Yadi
Louis.
Molina.
Yeah. Yep.
So Booch.
I
When
hate Yadi.
when the Phillies knock out the Cardinals,
Yes.
and Pujols and Molina are done.
Mm-hmm.
You ready for this one?
Yes.
They are the last two Major League Baseball players to play at Veterans Stadium.
Wow.
You're
be
shocked
honest with
right
you, if you would have pinned me down before we started talking about this series and asked if there were any players left in the league who played at the Vet, I would have guessed no.
There was a pitcher somewhere along the lines who was involved who pitched then too, but he's still in the league. But I don't know if he's still in the league or not. But I know for a fact that Molina and Pujols played at the Vet. That's insane.
One of the worst places to watch a Major League Baseball game, right up there with Riverfront Stadium and Three Rivers Stadium, Olympic Stadium. Yeah, those multi-use 1970s concrete bomb shelter stadiums were the scourge of live professional sports in this country. I'm so glad they're all gone now.
So how long?
Some were good for football, but not a damn one of them was any good for baseball. It was ridiculous to play baseball in a football stadium. No.
I mean, I can't imagine playing football back in those days on that turf like you had to back in the day. But imagine playing baseball on there?
Horrendous.
Playing the hot corner of a ball coming off of a piece of cement. God bless Michael Jack. The guy's a tool, but a hell of a damn player. I mean, that's a brutal place to play.
The only holdover from the multi-use stadium era that I wish we would have seen is when they built that new, Taj Mahal Stadium for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yep.
I wish that they would have, just for old time's sake, put an outfield on the field. Not that they would ever use it, but just imprint. Hi, Bella, you're live on television. Just imprint the outfield of a baseball diamond onto the Raiders field, because there's just something about my memories of watching Bo, busted into the opposing secondary and making his way through the Oakland A's outfield on his way to the end zone.
The Niners had that too in the late '80s.
Yeah, but I always associated more with the Raiders for whatever.
Who broke the cookie cutter? I mean, it's a pretty easy answer.
Well,
baseball.
So there might be two answers, because I think a lot of people credit the Orioles for building Camden Yards. Yeah,
I do.
Okay, yeah, same.
What's yours? What was the two?
Well, I mean, so they didn't literally replace a multi-use stadium with with a football and baseball, but I feel like once they built Camden Yards,
yes, and made the fan experience something again,
that this was a preferable alternative. And then you started to see I forget who was the first city to replace its multi-use stadium with separate football and baseball parks. It might have been Pittsburgh, could have been Cincinnati. I don't remember.
I'm gonna go St. Louis. The Rams,
right? The
Rams were playing indoors,
right,
in the 2000s, and then they had outside. I mean, I think Busch Stadium might be on its second stadium since the cookie cutter.
Yeah, that's possible.
Wow. So, I mean, how long was the Vet there? The Vet was like mid-'70s to 2000. That's 25 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you're already at 20 years for Citizens Bank Park. I mean, are they talking about replacing that already? Right? Isn't it crazy to think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard too much discussion about that. I mean, it's funny. I think I've probably heard more people talking about replacing the link than I have Citizens Bank.
I can't believe we're having that conversation.
No, I mean, look, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they're building a new arena for the 76ers already. It's crazy that they're talking about replacing either the Link or Citizens Bank.
I believe the
much
FU Center was 97.
Philly had before.
What was the first event held at the FU Center? which would have been Comcast Spectacor.
Right. I couldn't even tell you.
It was the World Cup of hockey.
Is that right?
Yeah, I went and saw Sweden play Canada in game 2 ever at that arena. It was badass. That was like when the U.S. had big upset of Canada in the World Cup.
Yeah.
You remember the World Cup of hockey that came out? And that was at the beginning. It was like I think probably the best hockey I've ever seen in my life. But man, we are all over the place today, Booch. We're replacing Busch Stadium. Now we're talking Canada Cup, World Cup hockey in the 90s.
Well, there was a logical progression, though, right? Because we talked
There's
about
no
the
logical
Phillies matching up
progression in
against
our
the Cardinals.
conversations.
We talked about the Phillies matching up against the Cardinals. You talked about Pujols and Molina being the last two guys to have played in Veterans Stadium. Then we got talking about the horror inflicted on the American sports fan that was the multi-use stadium in the 1970s. And then we got into, are they actually talking about replacing some of these venues that, were built in the last 20 years? And that's where we got to the Sixers building the new arena. And you asked what was the first.
Hey, so we had a conversation this past weekend about Veterans Stadium, friends and I.
Yeah.
What was the worst story you ever heard about that field?
Oh, Wendell Davis.
Thank you.
Yeah, both ACLs at the same time.
ACLs.
Absolutely brutal.
I mean, that's
One
horrible.
road venue ended that man's professional football career.
I went to see Penn State play Temple, I believe it was 1983 or 4.
Yeah.
And I saw Rocky Washington, Penn State's kick returner, punt returner, field a punt, but his foot got stuck in the turf.
The seams.
And the seam. And his foot was underneath it. And it didn't give. And I saw his body and his leg go 990 degrees the wrong way. And I'm a little kid. And Rocky Washington was my first hero at Penn State. I swear to God, the day my brother got dropped off here in 83, I was just sitting out in the parking lot, and this guy just comes up talking to me, hey, how you doing, this and that, with Rocky Washington. So I always followed him, and I broke my heart when his knee got shredded.
Yeah, that is brutal. I don't know about you, man. Despite being a diehard Philly fan, I find myself in the minority. I do not have like a ton of nostalgia for the vet.
Yep.
I mean, I talk to a lot of Philly fans who it's like, if you say a bad word about the vet, they're all over you. To me, like, I associate the vet mostly with losing and disappointment. A lot of really bad Phillies teams, a terrible in-person experience watching live baseball, and just, one Eagles team after another that found a way to piss me off and disappoint me.
Joe Juravicius.
Right on up to Joe Juravicius and Rondé Barber in the last game played there. And that team, that 2002 Eagles team, which might have been the most singularly talented team in the Andy Reid era, and couldn't make it to the Super Bowl.
And they had to go play the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah.
They had won that game.
Absolutely
they'd have walked away with the Super Bowl.
Smoked them. And it would have been perfect narrative, revenge for 1980, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though. I knew – you want to talk about being far afield. Now we really are. I will tell you, though. I knew watching the way Tampa played in the divisional round that we were in for big trouble.
And then you saw McNabb throw his first pass into the ground, and you're like, well, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Was he the worst? I mean, he's the best quarterback in Eagles history. I got it. I will freely admit that.
Sure.
But you could tell his first pass of every game how bad a game he was going to have or how good a game he was going to have. And that was crazy, but that was him.
Yeah, and that was a, well-coached team, ton of talent on defense, and right there in the middle of it was Warren Sapp taunting Philly fans for the Eagles not taking him because he smoked marijuana one time.
One time?
Maybe a few times.
That might be the funniest thing you ever said, Booch.
It's not about that. It's not about what you did. It's what they can prove you did.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Not to mention the fact that how many guys in the league then and now were and are smoking marijuana Who cares? For God's sakes, you have a generational tackle from Miami who wears number 99. You're supposed to draft, like fate is telling you to draft this guy, and instead you fall in love with Mike Mamula's combine numbers. They got what they deserved.
Mamula. Never played a bowl game, never went to a combine. Now remember that. They didn't invite juniors to the combine then.
Yeah, I'm sorry. His pro day.
Yeah, his pro day.
Yeah.
So think about that. When I was coming out of back in the day, you were only seniors were invited to the combine.
Right.
So you get a guy like Mike Mamula who gets done Thanksgiving weekend in November, and he has until April to get his pro day and all. March we'll say March to get his pro day through and all that. So you have guys who are playing at big time programs who were playing a bowl game January, playing the Senior Bowl in early February. Woof woof.
So I got to ask Denny who he played against in local softball. Was it Mamula? We were talking about Bo Jackson before. I demand answers.
What's that say?
Denny.
What was the comment? I didn't see it. It was too small.
Yeah, so he said that he had played. He just said played against him in local softball. He's the fastest human I've ever seen.
He's talking about me, I think. We're not talking about me. Okay, I got you. Sorry.
Okay, we're gonna bring in the Ironhead now too.
I don't think that could have been McNabb either, though. By the way,
What's shaking head?
Not much. Wonderful technology issues here at the Byers household.
Yeah, man. No worries. I'm just playing around with this so I can figure out what's not going to put my head in front of the logo. There we go.
better your head than mine. Ah!
Yeah, indeed. There we go.
Here, you know what? I'll turn.
That's about as good as we're going to get. So, Ironhead, you arrived at just the right time because Goon and I have spent the first. Rocky Washington, by the way.
Oh, nice. I got you.
Yeah. So there we go.
Sense.
Props to
Rocky Washington was the best.
And RIP his patellar tendons after playing at Veterans Stadium.
At Veterans Stadium.
Yeah, we've spent Ironhead probably the first 20 minutes of the show primarily talking about old Philadelphia sports venues because Goon was telling me at the outset, and I'm assuming you'll probably be as shocked by this as I am, that Albert Pujols and Yadi Molina, who are facing off against the Phillies tonight in the start of the wild card round. Tomorrow, yeah. Excuse me. I'm losing track of the days. They are the last two position players in the major leagues to have played at Veterans Stadium. I can't believe there are any left, frankly.
That
That's
means
amazing.
because Three Rivers and the Vet went down at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing for the Three Rivers and Riverfront. So those guys played in those arenas. Can you imagine that?
No, actually,
the world.
Yeah, that is kind of amazing. I did not realize that.
Yeah, I looked it up last year because I was sitting there saying, how long has Pujols been around? And he's well into his 40s. I mean, when I think about it, I get he was playing when I was in college. So, yeah, it's been a while. He was there with McGuire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Towards the end of McGuire's career was when Pujols was coming up. So
yes,
and Molina, they came up at the same time. That's a long time to be playing baseball, man. Ooh, an awkward silence between the boys. Whoa, that was awkward. Weird.
I would agree. It was an amazing run.
We all looked like we all had shifty eyes, too.
All right, Goon, I know you got to get out of here and not too much longer because you've got to go do a follow-up appointment at the vet, and we hope your everything is well with your four-legged friend, if not now, in the near future.
We'll get her through.
Let me ask you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to get a couple of answers from you real quick. The Birds are going out to the desert, which has been an absolute house of horrors for them, straight up and definitely against the spread. 0-5 in their last 5 trips to face the Cardinals in their building against the spread. 2-7 in their last 9. That's a Mike the Mailman trend of the week. You think they're 5-0 after this face-off with Kyler and crew?
After the anti-Cardinal weekend we're going to have here, yes, they are.
Yeah.
All Cardinals will be sacrificed by the end of the weekend.
Like never before.
Bet against Stanford this weekend. All Cardinals are going down.
And Louisville. Forget Louisville.
Louisville going down.
Yeah, but look out for Ball State. I think Ball State's going to be safe from the Cardinals.
They'll be all right. They can get nothing through it.
Penn State opening as 10-point dogs in Ann Arbor. Your thoughts?
Ooh, I didn't think it would be that much. Jeez.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a slap in the face to James and the boys.
That's a lot of slap in the face. What is Michigan done to get that? Or just how bad we played against Northwestern? I mean,
they beat the hell out of Hawaii, I suppose.
Ooh, UConn was a tough one, though.
UConn.
That Maryland was a nail biter.
Held off Maryland.
All right, and I'm sure Head and I in the second half are going to talk a lot about Kenny Pickett making his debut as a starter. What do you think, man?
Booch, before I go, Booch, I told you on the Players Show the other night, watch for Indiana clipping up Michigan, tripping them up. Watch it. It's a trap game for the Wolverines.
They know it.
Thanks.
Take the points. Out of here.
See you, brother.
See you guys.
So long, Goon. All right, let's hop to a break. On the other side, Ironhead and I will talk about Kenny Pickett making his debut as a starter for the Steelers and other good stuff. Stay with us here on the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead Show. We'll be right back.
Make more good in the all-new Sportage X-Pro. Kia, movement that inspires.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
New Trail Brewing Company proudly crafts their beers right here in central Pennsylvania. Brewed with only the best possible ingredients, New Trail produces a variety of year-round brands as well as weekly experimental recipes. New Trail Broken Heels is Pennsylvania's favorite local hazy IPA. This beer is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is perfect for a pregame tailgate all the way through the victory celebration.
What's the best mid-size pickup? Tacoma. What's the #1 mid-size truck in resale value? Tacoma. Want to get great gas mileage, 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive? Tacoma. Sioka Toyota of Williamsport has over 25 available right now. You can lease a brand new, never-driven Toyota Tacoma for just $379 a month. That's 30 months, 3,000 cash or trade, 10,000 miles a year. This is while supplies last. Buy yours or reserve yours today and see the Sioka difference. And remember, tell them Johnny sent you.
Boom, we're back. Ironhead, I don't even know who is the host and who is the co-host at this point, but it's the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show. If you're just joining us, we had to make a quick audible and take advantage of technology, do this one remotely today to accommodate for Goon. Had kind of a scare last night with the pup involving a late night trip to the emergency vet clinic. But, look, you never want to utilize those resources, but thankfully they're there for our four-legged friends. It's cool, man, that we're in a place where you can even get access to something like that if you need it, which unfortunately he and his wife did last night.
Yeah. Amen. It is a wonderful service to have and a lifesaver literally last night for the dear Goon and one of their pooches. So yeah, hopefully all turns out well there.
Okay, so I wanted to get into this with you, Ironhead. I remember going back to the summer there was a show where Goon was out. I was sitting in, and I said, okay, perfect time for us to go game by game through the Steelers' schedule and predict where we think they're going to be. Now, first of all, you and I could not have been full of more crap through like the first 4 weeks of the season based on how we thought Pittsburgh was going to play and how they are. Because I think you and I both had them at 3-1. Now, I mean, to be fair, we were looking at games against the Browns and the Jets and thinking that they were winnable, right?
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is the one for me there was Cincinnati. It was so far the first 4 games.
Right.
As is my want, I am 0 for 4 in terms of predicting the outcomes for the beloved Steelers. But
amazing. But the other thing you and I both talked about was at what point is Kenny Pickett going to step in as the starter? And I think we both had it pegged somewhere around like week 4 or week 5. So at least we were right about that. So Pickett making his debut as the starter this week after coming in spot duty last week and kind of an up and down performance. I don't know if you know this or not. Probably do. The first quarterback to throw his first 10 passes and none of them hit the ground. In NFL history, it's never happened before. 10 passing attempts, 0 incompletions. Now, unfortunately, 3 of those ended up being picked off. I think you can put a qualifier after all 3 of them, though, right?
For sure.
Plus 2 rushing touchdowns. So I think some things to like out of the debut performance if you're a Steelers fan. But I'll give you one other nugget of information before we dig into this. The Steelers, talking about the Penn State being a 10-point dog against Michigan next week. The Steelers are 2 touchdown underdogs for the first time in their history, or at least they open. I don't know what the line is right now. They opened as 14-point dogs. Yeah. They've never been more than 13.5, which they were to the Cowboys in Super Bowl 30. They covered, by the way, even though it didn't go the way you would like it. Yeah. As a Steelers fan or a Dallas hater.
Yeah, a little consolation.
I was huge. I've never been a bigger Steelers fan than I was in Super Bowl 30. But the last time they were this big of an underdog, a highly lauded first-round pick quarterback made his first start named Ben Roethlisberger, and the Steelers won. So, again, a little bit of things coming full circle here. Ironhead, you think history is about to repeat itself?
I would love it. I don't think it is, but I would certainly love it. There's a couple of things, though, and Booch, I guess then we're going to hold off to later in the show to get into the break down each of the 100 losses by the Pirates. I thought we were going to open with that, but we'll save that for later. That's fine.
Yeah, that's for Tuesday's show, right? Because we don't have a Penn State game to break down.
Maybe we'll do that on Mondays. Monday's show. Yep. We'll take a full 2 hours on Monday's show and break that down for you. Listen, there's a couple of things that with Kenny Pickett and with the Steelers right now. One is this thing was not going anywhere as it was with the combination of Mitch Trubisky, a quarterback, and TJ Watt out of the lineup on defense.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a big fan of thinking that one player should or can make that big of a difference. But, I mean, watch that Steelers game against Cincinnati and watch what's happened with Watt out.
Yeah,
point. I can argue all day about what I think should be happening and how other players should be stepping up. But, I mean, there's no question TJ Watt is not only along with Minka Fitzpatrick, I guess, the biggest playmaker on the defensive side of the ball, but he is the one that brings that energy and leads that defense from an emotional standpoint as well. And so, you know, I think his absence would still be my number one reason for why the Steelers are where they're at. But they obviously are having troubles on the offensive side of the ball, to put it mildly. And listen, I think Mitch Trubisky is an okay quarterback, but he is a journeyman, and he's a journeyman for a reason. And there's not a lot of journeymen. And there have been a couple. I mean, there are exceptions. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a quarterback that teams have been able to galvanize and rally around, at least for a short period of time. And I think Mitch Trubisky's attitude was great, and I think, but he's limited in what he can do for you and what he brings to the table. And I just think this organization and this team right now just needs that new energy. And Kenny Pickett brings, there's a bravado to him. There's a swagger that is not unlike Ben Roethlisberger. They're obviously very different players and different personalities, but they both bring a lot of confidence in themselves and belief in themselves. And I think that carries over into what they believe and their teammates believe can be done with them then at quarterback. And that's not to say, I don't have great expectations for this season. But that being said, I also don't think, as this thing is playing out, Booch, it's not going to take a superlative effort to be in contention in the AFC North, right? If they win a couple of games here, and I don't think that's going to happen with Buffalo, but I do think the few weeks after that, they have a chance to get some wins and get back. I think if you can get to the 500 mark at around that halfway point of the season, even if you can get to 4-5, 9 games in, I think you're going to be within striking distance in the AFC North. That division is not playing out the way I thought it would have at the start of the season. I still think at the end of the day, and I'm obviously hoping that the Steelers surprise me. I still think, as I've thought from day one, Cincinnati and Baltimore will be battling it out for the title there, and I think Pittsburgh and Cleveland are going to be the also-rans. But I think with Kenny Pickett now, I think the Steelers rightfully are going to push all the chips in on Kenny Pickett and see how this season progresses. See how the guys. Because it feels right now like, yes, this is the shot of energy that the Steelers need offensively. And I thought he played, despite the numbers, I thought he played pretty well actually against the Jets on Sunday. And I think he'll get more comfortable as he goes along. This week is going to be a huge test, obviously, and kind of thrown into the fire. But I think Mike Tomlin and that staff like that. And I suspect Kenny Pickett likes it. Let's find out exactly where we're at here. I don't think anybody's expecting him to go out and put up Patrick Mahomes type numbers against the Bills. But let's see if, how much, poise he is able to maintain throughout the course of the game, because he's going to get hammered. I don't think there's any quarterback that's not going to take some shots against the Bills this season. But let's see, can you hang in there? Can this team do some things offensively and get some consistency going? And if not, again, I think you have a season basically to play with here if you're Pittsburgh. And I don't necessarily think it's the mentality that Tomlin or the locker room has, but I do think the franchise, and I said at the time, I think Kenny Pickett was worth that first-round pick, because I think the Steelers were at a point where they could risk a guy, that could go either way. And I don't think, because I think there's a couple of years of play here for the organization to get the offensive side figured out. And that was going to be pretty much no matter what happened. I think right now, I think Kenny Pickett could be that guy, but let's see how this season progresses and how he progresses. And then, again, I think you still have another year or so to play with and figure out for sure if this is your guy. Because, listen, we've seen guys put up great rookie numbers or great first season numbers anyway and not be the guy. And we've seen it go the other way too, obviously, where you have a disastrous first season and, you end up being the guy in a long-term solution.
Yeah, especially if you end up as one of those quarterbacks, at least on the offensive side of the ball, Pickett kind of is, where one of the reasons why you got selected is because the team was in position to be taking a quarterback in the first round, right?
Right.
And, it's no secret that the linchpin of the Steelers' success or lack thereof on offense is the O-line. And at least through watching the preseason and even when he came in last week, the two things that stuck out to me about Pickett from pretty much the get-go is that I thought he has shown, pretty good pocket presence and surprisingly a little bit faster decision-making ability, I think, than Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
And both of those things will serve him well, playing behind that leaky O-line that Pittsburgh has right now. I think you and I, like I said, going back to our preseason conversation over the summer, felt that it was going to be Pickett's team sooner rather than later. That was probably the right move because in the NFL, especially today, you take a quarterback in the first round with the intention of playing him as quickly as possible. I'm curious about your thoughts about the decision to do it this week, where you make his first start going into the teeth of that Bills defense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think it's ideal, but I also think it was necessary because the way that Jets game was unfolding, and I understand they still lost the game, and that that the reason Pickett was inserted was to give them the best chance to win. Yeah. But I think that decision was their best chance to win, and truthfully, I think even though I think it's a very tall odds, and I'm not expecting the Steelers to win Sunday, I do think, despite his youth, that he is the better option to give the Steelers their best chance to win. For one thing, he moves better than Trubisky, and against the Bills, getting some movement is going to be pretty doggone vital for the quarterback. And my guess is, and obviously I'm not privy to what's happening in the private discussions between Tomlin and Pickett, but I'm guessing Tomlin has a pretty good sense at this point that this is a guy that's not going to get rattled because he has a poor game or two. And I think they have enough sense. Now, it's one thing to say
he played for Pitt for a long time, Ironhead, so he's well acquainted with losing football games.
Yeah, and listen, but you could get banged around, and that confidence that you think is there, I mean, it could be shaken. I think both Kenny and Tomlin believe that it won't be. And I think it won't be either. I just think he has enough moxie. And I think Pickett realizes that this is one of the best, if not the best defense in the National Football League. And, Pickett's not an idiot either. He knows that this offensive line, not that he's going to say anything publicly, but I mean, he's not sitting there looking at the tape saying, oh my gosh, I actually have a stalwart offensive line and I don't have to worry about I'm going to have a clean pocket every game. I mean, he's aware of what's happening in that Steelers locker room. And so, I think he's a guy that just has that resilience. Again, I'm still not sure whether or not he's the answer. And I think anybody that says definitively yes or no, you may end up being right, but the fact is nobody knows right now.
Yeah.
And I think you need to find out sooner rather than later. And I think, this is an excellent opportunity to let's see what you can do against, again, a truly great defense in a game where you've got to put up points, right? I mean, the Steelers are not going to win this game. I don't think they're going to win the game, period. I could stop the sentence there, but they're not going to win the game unless they're at least in the mid-20s would be my expectation, because without TJ Watt, that Bills offense is, putting up, in my mind, minimum 24 points, even against, I think it is a good Steelers defense. But again, I think that offense for Buffalo is terrific. And so, again, I think this is just a great measuring stick game. And then let's see, more important to me than how Kenny looks on Sunday. And I expect he's going to look okay. I mean, I don't think he's going to set the world on fire, but I think as far as his individual play is concerned, I'm expecting it to be decent. And then, but I think more than that, it's going to give you the barometer to measure the rest of the season by. And again, I don't think you're getting anything at this point by keeping Trubisky on the bench, even for this game, leaving Pickett on the bench and leaving Trubisky in there, when clearly now the future is Pickett. Let's find out what you got. Let's start developing it and seeing week to week what it looks like. And, hopefully by the end of the season, the Steelers have a pretty good sense one way or the other that, yep, this is a guy that can make all of the throws we need. And, if we can get an offensive line that can give him some time, we have something to work with here. Or, yeah, you know what? maybe a serviceable backup, but we've still got to be looking for our guy. But I think you need to find that out as best you can this season if you're that Steelers organization, so you know what you're looking for this coming off season.
Yeah, I'm with you on that totally. In some ways, I saw the decision to start Trubisky to begin with is maybe a little bit of and I don't want to call it a mistake, but it just seemed like a repetition of this time-worn process we've seen in the NFL now, where a team is going through a quarterback transition. They draft a guy in the first round, and they have a journeyman on the roster who they doggedly insist they're committed to all throughout the spring and summer, when everyone knows that guy is lucky if he lasts 4 weeks. And here we are. The whole thing plays itself out again, where Trubisky ends up on the bench. Either way, I think I agree with you that despite it being suboptimal to start the guy's career as a starter versus one of the top defenses in the league, the time has come. I remember, again, going back to that conversation we had week by week, looking at the Steelers' schedule in the preseason. You said you thought there would maybe be a little extra juice in this game on the Buffalo side, given what the Steelers did to the Bills in the opener last year. I haven't paid too close attention to it. I don't know if there's been any chatter or locker room material or anything coming out of the Buffalo side, but are you still sensing that might be a factor this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a huge factor. I don't think it's going to be all up over the locker room. Remember the score last year of the Steelers game. I think there were some other losses later in the year that are probably sticking with that Bills organization.
They're probably at this point a little bit they're probably more fixated on losing that game to the Dolphins this season than they are to the Steelers at the beginning of last year.
Yeah, and this is so part of the reason I don't love this spot for the Steelers now is because of what's happened the last 2 weeks for the Bills. And they got the win last week, but it was not a stellar effort, and they certainly now do not look like some people were thinking they looked almost unbeatable those first couple of weeks. And so, but the problem for the Steelers is I think Buffalo now does have a chip on its shoulder. I think more than the loss to the Steelers last year, it's from the performance the last 2 weeks. And I think they are going to come out, the Bills, with a chip on their shoulder, more so from that, and just wanting to show that, listen, we are what everybody said we were before the season started, and that is the Super Bowl favorites.
You were hoping to draw Bill Bixby, and instead you got Lou Ferrigno, is what you said. Yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah,
and listen, but from the Steelers' perspective, to me, this particular game, and again, I don't think the Mike Tomlin or the guys in the locker room are looking at it like this, but I'm telling you, as a Steelers fan, this week is house money. I think it's just a great opportunity. Let's go out, see what we can do, and it may not be much. It may not be much against this Bills team as it's comprised, with the Steelers team the way it's comprised. But I think this is a week where, again, you can let it fly, let some things, let Kenny Pickett go out and have some fun as much as you can, and let him be himself, and see if you can carry that over and get the receivers to make some plays. In fairness to Trubisky, the receivers have not been upholding their end of the bargain here to this stage of the season. I mean, no question, the offensive line has been the biggest problem for that offense, but they have not been consistent in any phase of the game to this point. And I think the receivers need to be what they should be in terms of that should be one of the better receiving cores, really in the league, but certainly in the AFC this year. And
considering
they really
you have the best receiver in the NFL, and you start a trio, Ironhead, you would think they'd be performing a little bit better.
Listen, I think, again, to me, I'm not too – I'll be thrilled. I mean, beyond thrilled with the Steelers' victory this Sunday. I'm looking more for, hey, can this defense show some signs that it can slow down, even without T.J. Watt, an outstanding offense? And can Kenny Pickett provide some kind of a spark? Can you find something that you can hang your hat on in terms of the future of this offense after this game? And again, even if you come out of this game saying, oh my gosh, Pickett looked absolutely horrendous and the Steelers are awful, I still think moving forward, you just build on what you have right now. And to me, again, this season is all about seeing what you have with Pickett, and I think trying to figure out what pieces of that offensive line you think you can develop and what pieces just are going to need replaced. I mean, to me, this season now is about assessing and trying to pivot as quickly as you can back into a contender next season from an organizational standpoint. Again, I don't think Mike Tomlin and the players are going into any game with any thought other than let's try to win this week. But I think big picture that the organization needs to be, all right, figuring out these are the areas that we absolutely have to target in the offseason. I think Trubisky will not be a member of the Steelers before the trade deadline. And I think they need to, see what they can get, if anything, for him. Ideally, an all-pro guard would be fantastic. But I think,
wish you lots of luck there.
Something that is serviceable on this year's team that you can use to kind of plug in and help build for the future.
Yeah, I want to ask you one other Steelers-related question, which is totally off the quarterback side of things, but sticking with offense. It was an interesting kind of, here and gone online headline this week that was great for Penn State, that two of the top three rushers in the NFL through the first 4 weeks are Nittany Lions. Saquon is having a great bounce-back season. He's tops overall. And Miles Sanders quietly up there as the number 3 leading rusher. Kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum is Najee Harris, who has not been having a ton of success in his sophomore campaign. And I know there were a lot of Steelers fans who were up in arms a little bit about the decision to use a first-round pick on a running back. Pretty controversial, again, given the way teams prioritize different positions in the NFL these days. Maybe it's not fair, given the well-documented offensive line issues and the season only being, 25% old at this point. But let me just ask you, how are you feeling a year and a half removed from the decision to draft Najee Harris in the first round now?
Yeah, I'm still okay with it, and I do think he is a really special running back.
Me too. I like him a lot. I thought it was a good call when they picked him.
Yeah, and I actually still think it is. The one thing right now, and I don't know what the statistics are. I should look that up, but it feels to me like his yards after the initial contact are still pretty darn good. It's just that the initial contact is happening a lot of plays before he gets to the line of scrimmage. And so a 3 or 4 yard run, he's getting 6-7 yards after contact, which for any running back, that 6 or 7 yard part is pretty darn good. And I don't know, again, I don't have the statistics. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but boy, just
I'm looking it up right now. Keep going.
It sure feels like that's the case. And I do think with a good, or going back to the conversation we've had with Penn State's offensive line, I don't think you need a great world-beating offensive line, but you need a line like Penn State now, I think, has this year, which is solid. It can at least hold up against average defenses very well and can create some opportunities. And we'll find out if I'm right about this, but I think it can create some opportunities against elite defenses as you move down the road. And the Steelers just don't have that right now. And, the other part of the problem for Najee Harris right now is in part because of that offensive line, but in part because of Mitch Trubisky's skill set. They being opposing defenses, are able to first and foremost stop the run, because there's not a great concern that if you go in too much on the run that you're going to get burned in any significant fashion by the Steelers passing game. Now, hopefully that can change as the season goes along. And, the early indications to me from what I'm watching, I think Kenny Pickett can make the throws that you would expect an NFL starting quarterback to make. I think he can deliver the ball downfield. I think he's been pretty accurate despite the interceptions. But I think when you look at how they occurred, it wasn't an accuracy issue with Pickett. And so I think, the good news for Penn State fans and for my fantasy team is I think Pat Freiermuth, who's been a significant part of the offense anyway, I think is going to become a huge part of the offense, certainly this week against the Bills, but I think moving forward for this season, because he is so reliable. He has been remarkably consistent in his ability to catch the football since going to Pittsburgh. And I just think they need to get him more targets. And I suspect part of the game plan here with Pickett will be to get Najee Harris involved a little more in the passing game, but a heavy dose of Pat Freiermuth to then hopefully open some things up deeper for the guys that have got to start making plays for this team as it moves down the tracks here in the 2022 campaign.
All in all, you guys are, I think, getting to see how the other half lives a little bit this year, at least for now. At least for now.
And again, I think I'm in the minority, but I'm honestly okay with it. And I really felt when they went the Trubisky route, and I think I said it at the time on our show, I said, this is, again, I realize Mike Tomlin and the guys in that locker room are never looking at it this way, but I think the organization
waving the white flag.
When they went Mitch Trubisky, it was the organization saying, we're going to build here for a couple of years. We know we're not contending right now. Because I really do think if as an organization they felt the only piece missing was the quarterback, they make a serious play for Garoppolo, or they go after a quarterback that I think could be a difference maker. Nobody in their right mind thought Mitch Trubisky was going to be the difference maker for the Steelers. I think, the hope was that he would be serviceable, and I think he was serviceable. I mean, I don't think the Trubisky experiment in Pittsburgh was a disaster, but it was what you reasonably should have thought it would be, which is not that great when, especially again, when you have the offensive line woes. And, you did not get great receiver play here through the early part of the season either.
Yeah, and I think the big question for Kenny Pickett is going to be, to what extent can he demonstrate a knack for the timely big play? Yeah. Because I am thinking a little bit about what you just said about, the extent to which Mitch Trubisky was serviceable. And Pittsburgh has been in these games. It's not like they're getting blown off the field. Right? It's that when push has come to shove, the plays that we have gotten so used to seeing Pittsburgh make, seeing the Steelers make in close games for 20 years, they haven't had those plays go their way.
Yeah.
As I think back on it, all the way back to the beginning of Roethlisberger's career, and he's kind of an interesting case because he's one of the few guys, and maybe Josh Allen is another, where the quarterback they looked like they were through the first year or two of their career is not the quarterback they ended up being for the majority of it, right? Like Ben Roethlisberger really took a tremendous step forward as a passer in his third or fourth season in the league. But all the way back to that first, we talked about the Steelers haven't been this big of an underdog since Ben's first start that they ended up winning. The reason he went 14-1, 15-1 as a starter, whatever it was, as a rookie, was not because he was a polished passer or anything close to it.
Sure.
He had a great defense that kept them in games, and the dude just had a knack for making a big play when the opportunity presented itself. And this team looks relatively similar. O-line and running game aren't as strong as the one Ben had to play with, but a great defense. Sure. I mean, I still think they've got one of the best defenses in the NFL, especially when TJ Watt comes back. The question is, can they just convert on 2 or 3 of those clutch play opportunities that they have not through the first 4 weeks? Because they didn't even really do that against Cincinnati. I mean, the Bengals shot themselves in the foot time after time, or otherwise, Pittsburgh's 0-4.
Yeah, the big difference, and I mean, you touched on it, but that running game was phenomenal when Big Ben came in. I mean, Bettis and that offensive line. I mean, Bettis was terrific, but that offensive line was big time for the Steelers when Big Ben came in. And the concern, talking with a couple of other people that follow the Steelers, they're like, I just worry about Maybe it'd be better to play Trubisky for a while because of the potential for injury because of that offensive line. And this is my perspective. This is a league where you can't play with that fear. And Pickett could very well get hurt in the first quarter Sunday. It happens, but I don't think it's any more or less likely to happen this week against Buffalo than it is in week 13 against Cleveland, or whenever you put him in there. Anytime you're in an NFL game, there's a risk of injury. Anytime you're in an NFL practice, there's a risk of injury. And I just think that, again, you've got to see what you have. And listen, if it does become a situation where he's injury prone, you got to find that out too.
You got to go to war with the army you got in the NFL, man. Like the Bengals went all the way to the Super Bowl, letting Joe Burrow, who is absolutely their prized possession, get tattooed behind that offensive line last season.
Well, and that's the other part of it is that you can't sit there and say, well, we're not going to play Kenny Pickett until we have a great offensive line, or we have an offensive line that we're confident in. Because you don't know, hopefully that'll happen within the next year or two. But I mean, you're not going to sit Kenny Pickett for 5 years here. Well, no, next year, once we get the other offensive tackle, then we can put him. I mean, you just can't. You can't play football that way, guys.
Yeah. Otherwise, like, you're going to be seeing, Matt Ryan coming in next year to be the new, I always call him Doug Peterson quarterbacks. Like, a lot of people who are not Eagles fans forget that long before Doug was a Super Bowl winning coach in Philadelphia, or a losing coach in Philadelphia like he was last week at the head of the Jaguars, he was the sacrificial lamb Andy Reid brought over in his first year. So Andy was the quarterbacks coach in Green Bay. Then he gets hired to coach the team in 1999. Donovan McNabb is his first ever first-round draft pick. And Doug Peterson was Brett Favre's backup at that time. And so Andy brought him in because he was like, hey, Doug, no one else is going to let you start. You want to be a starter in the NFL, buddy? Come on in. You can do this. I am going to basically put you out there to be the bullet sponge against this terrible offensive line I'm inheriting, because I don't want to let my first-round quarterback get subjected to the punishment he's going to get playing behind Philly's O-line. And, no fan in their right mind is going to be disappointed, no offense, Doug, when I inevitably pull the trigger and let the first-round pick come in. And you don't care. You're happy to finally play. You're not going to play in Green Bay behind Brett Favre. The guy never gets hurt. So, Mitch Trubisky was a prototypical Doug Peterson quarterback arrangement.
Yeah, and something you said there too that just got me to thinking also about. And I think we talk about this every year at the draft, how important situations are, and there are quarterbacks that I have no doubt that we've put on the trash heap of history as they just weren't any good. Who actually, if they had fallen into the right situation, a la Terry Bradshaw or a la, and Aaron Rodgers, as it turned out, because I do think him being able to sit for a couple of years helped, allowed him to develop into what he became. But
yeah, pretty much like every quarterback drafted by Washington since Dan Snyder bought the team.
Well, yeah, and so part of it is. Again, sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle with the right coach and the right quarterback at the right time together, right? And it might be something that only works for a year or two, but man, it works, and you run with it. But with the Steelers, they obviously are looking for, as every organization is looking for, is that guy that you can build, the franchise around for the next 10 years or so. And the Steelers right now are hoping that is Kenny Pickett. As I said earlier, I don't think anybody has any definitive idea of whether or not, there are people on both sides making their case. But you got to see how this thing plays out. And there are so many factors that are going to come into play. How the offensive line progresses this season and over the next couple, and whether they can get the right pieces in there to help the situation, health of the defense, health of Kenny Pickett, all of these things play in, and the right offensive coordinator, right? I mean, we've seen great quarterbacks with the wrong offensive coordinator and it doesn't work. And we've seen pretty mediocre quarterbacks have, again, some stellar seasons if they have an OC that they click with and a couple of, great wide receivers that make plays for you. So, again, to me, this just feels like the right decision, right time for Kenny Pickett. I think he brings an energy that this team desperately needs right now, and it was not going to happen with Mitch Trubisky. And again, I think Pickett's confidence is key here in the decision. And I think the Steelers believe, and I know Kenny Pickett believes that confidence, regardless of what happens this week or over the next couple of weeks, that confidence isn't going to be shaken, that Kenny Pickett believes he is the long-term answer. He obviously has the fan backing right now, which is not insignificant, I think, from an organizational standpoint either, that they know the fans want to see this and they want to see it work. So everybody's kind of on board and pulling. And that, again, is not insignificant. If you have a quarterback that nobody wanted, then, it becomes a tougher sledding. The first couple of interceptions you have, all of a sudden everybody's all over you. Right now, everybody in Pittsburgh's, no, that wasn't Kenny's fault. And it wasn't, by the way. But I mean,
right.
But if it was, somebody that they were not high on.
If it was Mitch, it would be a different story.
They're not giving the benefit of the doubt there. So to me, this whole season is just, let's see what they can do and see how things develop. I don't know. I'm not too worked up myself about this season. I've kind of, from the day they signed Trubisky, I've kind of figured this is a season that is, if they can keep the 500 streak that Tomlin has going and get to 9-8, I personally would be thrilled, and especially if it feels like that trajectory is on the way up for the offense, and that you feel like there's at least a strong possibility or probability that, Kenny Pickett is your long-term answer there at quarterback. That would be worth even a sub 500 season if you come out of that feeling like that is truly the case, because then you can start building the rest of this thing around, Pickett and that defense. And I think, you're not that far away then you're a couple of pieces on that offensive line, really, from being, I think, a serious contender again.
It's a fine line in the NFL, always, for sure. And the good news for if you're Steelers fan, ready to watch the commencement of the Kenny Pickett era, if you're an Eagles fan, eager to see whether or not they're going to finally be able to cover the spread in the desert versus Cardinals, or if you are a Phillies fan and you're excited about the return of October baseball to Philadelphia after a decade-long absence, and you also root for the Nittany Lions, you can do all of the preceding in total relaxation, because there's no game to worry about watching or get worked up about or anything. We can just enjoy college football and playoff baseball and the NFL entirely relaxed as we await the big matchup in Ann Arbor next weekend.
Yeah, and truthfully, Booch, I just, Jalen Hurts, there were a lot more question marks, from the fan base, right, in Philadelphia. And I don't think, you can definitively say that, Jalen Hurts is going to have a great career, headed to the Hall of Fame, no worries at all. But, man, that dude is different player in different circumstances, I get, than Josh Allen. But what they both have in common, and I think it is significant, is that they are two guys who clearly understood what they needed to improve on.
Yeah.
And went to work busting their ass to make sure that they were making those strides. And, Goon has said many times that Jalen Hurts is his favorite college quarterback for the way he handled everything. And I do think there is something to be said, Booch, about having to endure, not that anybody wants to have, challenges that are unexpected thrown in front of them. But I really do think if you have the right mindset, right, those guys that have to go through some struggles of some significance of one kind or another, it just does seem to sharpen their mettle for being able to make those improvements and become, because as you said, become great. And there's such a fine line between success and failure in the NFL, and being, a team that's contending for the Super Bowl or being a 500 team. It's not a great separation. And a lot of it is just a mindset and being able, to make the plays when you need to make them. And, Hurts so far this season, it is feeling like something pretty special is developing. And, again, it's a lot of pieces that go into it. Timing is right and all of that. But he has to be the guy, the quarterback in the NFL today has to be the guy that is, stirring the drink on offense, and that at the very least is able to instill confidence on that side of the ball. And there's no question that Jalen Hurts is doing that right now in Philadelphia. And, I think early indications are that Kenny Pickett, I think, can do a similar thing, just in terms of, again, bringing a new energy into that side of the ball in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. And I was a Jalen Hurts guy. I wanted no part of trading for Russell Wilson, or even worse, Deshaun Watson. But he has nevertheless exceeded my expectations as well so far this season. So best of luck to our respective quarterbacks this weekend. Ironhead, good luck to the Fighting Phils, exercising the demons of 2011 versus the Cardinals. All Cardinals hate week in Philly this weekend.
And listen, it's going to be an exciting offseason. The Pirates are probably going to make some really big trades and get themselves right into contention next year. The big money spenders, they're not going to sit around and tolerate this, Spooch. I think that 20-year plan is about to pay off in 2040 or so.
I think the drama that is about to unfold at PNC Park over the next 14 months over whether or not the Pirates can avoid back-to-back triple-digit loss seasons is going to be gripping.
They'll be going for 3 in a row next year.
Oh, God, is that right?
Yeah.
They lost 100 last year, too?
Yeah, they lost, I think it was 101 last year. So they actually –
I didn't even remember.
Yeah, this year, you're looking for improvement. So they're on the way up, Booch. It is entirely possible that they only lose 99. Heck, they might only lose 98 next year, Booch.
The drive for 99 is the theme
forward
for the
next
Buccos
year. So
for 2023, let's get into double-digit losses.
Before we finish up, I do want to a huge shout out and thank you to the Washington Nationals for making sure that the Pirates were not the worst team in Major League Baseball. Thank you, dear Nationals. That was mighty, mighty kind of you.
I, too, would like to thank the Washington Nationals for contributing several of those L's to the Philadelphia Phillies organization.
I know that you would.
Needed every single one of them. Ironhead, a pleasure. Thanks to Goon for joining us for the first half.
Yes.
Hope everything is okay with the pup on his end. I hope you all enjoy a relaxing Penn State bye week. And boys will be back at Quaker Steak and Lube, 3 p.m. next Tuesday. Until then, as Ironhead would say, be good and be safe. We are Penn State.